We want to be allies, and we want to be standing shoulder to shoulder to walk a path of justice.
Tonight, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh brings his election campaign through Winnipeg.
And so on August 9th, when the shelter closed, 22 people showed up on our doorstep here at the Rock Soup Greenhouse and Food Bank because they knew we wouldn't turn them away.
And the city of Wetaskiwin, Alberta pulls the plug on a shelter for the homeless, but offers no viable alternatives in the midst of a growing problem. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. It's day 12 of the federal election and the campaigns are in full swing. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh was in Winnipeg today. This morning, Singh made an announcement about housing. He met with Indigenous leaders in the afternoon. There, Singh said he wants to ensure all boil water advisories are lifted on First Nations and continue the important work with unmarked grave sites at residential schools. He also said the NDP would work with Indigenous communities as opposed to an Ottawa knows best approach.
We want to be allies, and we want to be standing shoulder to shoulder to walk a path of justice, of respect, of dignity, walk that path acknowledging that we should be working with Indigenous communities as nation to nation, as partners. It should not be an Ottawa knows best approach, but one of allyship and partnership and working together.
In the run-up to the vote on September 20th, APTN News is hoping to speak one-on-one with all of the leaders of the federal parties. Today we're joined in studio by Jagmeet Singh, the leader of the federal NDP. Mr. Singh, thanks so much for being with us here today.
Thank you, my honor to be here.
It's easy to point to all of the big promises that have been broken by the Liberals over the past 5-6 years, whether it be clean water, the MMIWG inquiry's recommendations, or fighting First Nations kids in court. But how would the NDP address these issues that have really been going on for decades?
Well, first off, we would immediately stop the fight against kids in court. These are kids that were discriminated against by the federal government, by the Canadian government, and the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal found that they were both willfully and recklessly discriminated against. Despite that ruling, Justin Trudeau is fighting them in court. We would stop that court battle right away. We'd send an immediate notification to the lawyers to stop that case, and we would settle, and we would follow through with the ruling of the Human Rights Tribunal. This is about respect and dignity, and what worse way of showing respect than to say, we're not going to listen to the Human Rights Tribunal and we're going to fight kids in court. So we wouldn't do that. We would make sure that we put the resources necessary to clean drinking water immediately, make sure it's done. We know that we're in a country that has technology and the resources to make this happen. We would get it done. And it's shameful, frankly, that the Liberals promised to clean drinking water within 6 years and haven't done it, and that they promised the reconciliation was important, but they're fighting these kids in court. We would change that.
By last count, the party, the NDP, says you're running 26 Indigenous candidates in this federal election. That's nearly as many as you had in 2019. We know that the Indigenous vote has helped tip the scales for the Liberals in the last two elections. How do you move those votes to the NDP?
Well, we've shown our commitment to justice for the First People of this land, and we're going to continue to show that. For me, this is a very personal thing, something that goes back to what my mom taught me, that we are all one and that we're all connected. And if people around us are hurting or suffering, we're also suffering. And the First People of this land have continued to face injustice, genocide and ongoing injustice. And we have to get this right. And so I'm committed to fighting to make sure there's clean drinking water, that there's good housing, that there's investments in healthcare, and I want to see it happen.
We've seen in British Columbia, where there is an NDP provincial government in Fairy Creek, and with the fight against the Coastal GasLink pipeline, the militarized police response and the way that the provincial NDP government has handled these types of issues. Do you have any concern that that will hurt your party's chances in BC and potentially other places?
Well, I'm deeply concerned about the RCMP's response. This is a police agency that is fully regulated by the federal government. And there has certainly been disturbing, heavy-handed tactics used, and I condemn those. That is not how these type of disputes should be resolved with that type of violence. It is completely wrong. And what we said, there needs to be a review of use of force policies at the federal level. We need to make sure that there's a focus on de-escalation. And these are demands that we've asked for a long time now, and Justin Trudeau has ignored them. And so this is the ongoing result of a prime minister that continues to ignore the real problems that are going on and does not bring in the changes needed.
We're only on week 2 here of this election, but it sure feels like there's a lot of hate so far in this campaign, whether it be online or even with the people at events. We know so many of the issues Indigenous people face come back to systemic racism, whether it's the justice system, healthcare, all forms of institutional racism. We know that you too have faced that discrimination. How does this country move beyond that?
One, we have to acknowledge it. Systemic racism is real, and it takes lives. We see it in the justice system, with Indigenous people and racialized people making up far more of the population, being disproportionately represented. And we see it in the fact that clean drinking water is being denied. This would never happen. An issue around clean drinking water would never happen in a city like Winnipeg, where we are today, or in any large city around Canada. And the fact that Indigenous communities still don't have clean drinking water is a very stark reminder of systemic racism. We see it in healthcare outcomes, and I think about Joy Shishechewan, who pleaded with people to get care and died while she was streaming live on Facebook. I mean, this is the real impact of discrimination. So we would acknowledge that it's real and then commit to fighting it. When it comes to the things that we can deal with in the justice system and the healthcare system, we need to make it really clear there is no place for this type of discrimination. And we need to find better ways to track it so we can identify where it happens, so better data around collecting where discrimination is happening and how we can fight it. And we really need to look at some of the other forms of discrimination based on online hate and how online hate is radicalizing people, and we've got to tackle that. These are just some of the things we can do, but really it's the commitment to tackling discrimination and hate, and it's something that I want to tackle.
We know a lot of Indigenous people are on the fence whether to vote or not even, or where to vote, put their vote. What do you say to those out there who may be on the fence right now?
I would encourage everyone to get out and vote. It is easy to do. You can do an online ballot, you can vote in person, you can vote in advance. Whatever you choose, find a plan, make a plan, have a buddy, a friend, so you can make sure you get it done. You know, in all good things in life, we have a buddy with us, so bring a buddy along and make sure you vote. It is so vital and crucial to have a say. And ideally, I'd love for you to vote for New Democrats, but vote for sure, because you can make a difference in the way our country is shaped coming out of this pandemic and the way we actually put in place real justice for people.
Jagmeet Singh, we'll have to leave it there, but do appreciate you taking some time to come in here today.
My honor. Thanks so much.
And for more on the federal election, you can visit our website, aptnnews.ca. That's where you'll find our earlier interview with Annamie Paul, the leader of the federal Green Party, and all of our election coverage. In Alberta, Indigenous people won't be able to vote on reserve in the upcoming provincial referendum. Since Indigenous communities aren't considered municipalities, those living on reserve will have to either travel to the nearest municipality or vote by mail. Plebiscite questions include whether equalization payments should be eliminated from the Constitution and whether Alberta should adopt a year-round daylight savings time. Albertans will vote on October 18th. News from Toronto that Ryerson University will be changing their name. The school's Standing Strong Task Force made 22 recommendations to the Board of Governors today, and all 22 were accepted. One of those recommendations is to remove Egerton Ryerson's name from the school. Ryerson was one of the architects of Canada's residential school system, and many Indigenous advocates have been pushing for this change. Well, we'd like to hear what you think about the name change at Ryerson or anything else you see here. Here's how you can continue the conversation. You can send your emails to news@aptn.ca or leave a comment on aptnnews.ca. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. Anishinaabe Nation leaders gathered in Thunder Bay today in a plea for help regarding a series of fatal incidents in a Northern Ontario community which occurred over a 3-day period. Winneman Lake First Nation said last week a 20-year-old died after falling from a communications tower. Shortly after, another resident who witnessed the incident died by suicide. In the same week, they reported an elder passed away in a care facility off reserve. The family was not notified until a day after. Leaders are calling on governments for immediate and long-term supports for the community. With the federal election weeks away, Deputy Grand Chief Bobby Narcisse had one message for federal and provincial leaders.
We call upon all levels of government to say, what is your plan to address these issues? We no longer can be treated as second-class citizens in a very resource-rich province as Ontario. And the fact that many of our community members are going through this, and the chief is here calling on a state of emergency. What is your plan?
Time to step aside for a quick break, but first, here's a look at something we're working on.
I'm Tamara Pimentel. In southern Alberta, the opioid crisis gets worse.
We're losing more people to this drug than we are losing to COVID.
In the past year, Blood Tribe has lost 194 members.
But officials say most of those deaths happen off reserve, with restrictions on safe injection sites. What will it take to lower the overdose rate? I'll have that story soon on APTN National News.
Welcome back. Earlier this month, the city of Wetaskiwin, south of Edmonton, closed a homeless shelter. It had only been operating for 9 months, and now those evicted are camping in tents across the city, and they're wondering where they will sleep with winter approaching. APTN's Chris Stewart has that story.
The hub in Wetaskiwin opened in November of last year. It housed 60 people each night and provided services to hundreds more. In May, the city of Wetaskiwin pulled the lease on the city-owned building. The city said complaints from businesses and residents about increased crime caused the decision. Tyler Gandam is the mayor of Wetaskiwin.
As time went on, we were seeing a big increase in the number of people downtown. Then there became an issue when people were being accosted. There was assaults happening downtown, open drug use, open alcohol use.
When the shelter closed on August 9th, many had nowhere to go. Some arrived on the doorstep of the Rock Soup Greenhouse and Food Bank. Craig Halbertson is the executive director.
If we close the shelter, where are people going to go? If we close the shelter, how are people going to eat? And these questions just kept going unanswered by the powers that be. And so on August 9th, when the shelter closed, 22 people showed up on our doorstep here at the Rock Soup Greenhouse and Food Bank because they knew we wouldn't turn them away.
They had to set up quickly. Rock Soup is providing food, clothes washing, and paying for showers at the nearby pool.
We're volunteer run, so me and about 7 volunteers put together camp for 22 in 2 hours. They came with no tents, no blankets, no nothing. We put the call out to our community on social media, and people rallied. And so we were able to shelter, feed, and clothe 22 people on night 1.
V. Duncan is a mental health and homeless advocate. He's working with the Rock Soup to help those in Wetaskiwin who need it. He says the city doesn't have a plan for the winter to help the people staying here and the other encampments in the city.
They want to move everyone over behind this empty lot behind Walmart, and it's kind of ridiculous because they aren't offering any amenities, washrooms, food support.
Both Duncan and Halvertson say the reports of crime are overblown.
Because they're saying that it's bringing more crime to the neighborhood, but I don't see that really happening. A lot of these people are pretty respectful to the area. And a lot of it's just blatant racism from city of Wetaskiwin members. A lot of them drive up and they'll yell at the campers, go back to the reserve, you know, dirty Indians, you don't belong here.
I think more it's about the perception of the people than the actual people. And I've seen that here firsthand. We're seeing overt racism here in Wetaskiwin, unlike I've ever seen in my career. I worked in children's services for a long time. I've never seen racism at this level.
Inspector Durrance of the Wetaskiwin RCMP spoke to APTN. He said crime so far this year is actually down. There were some increases of assaults and use of chemicals. And break-and-enters and car thefts are down.
Look, this is all we got left is that right there. Yeah, that's 3 more logs for the night. How are we going to deal with that?
Tom has been living in the teepee outside the Rock Soup. Tom is not his real name. He says local residents shine headlights at the tents at night to disturb their sleep.
They drive by on their vehicles and rev them up, the heavy, with the loud pipes, they're heavy trucks, yeah. Then they beep the horn 4 in the morning by here real long, just to be ignorant, right?
To keep you awake?
Yeah, that's what they're doing.
Tom is asking for donations of wood, socks, and winter clothing. The firewood is nearly gone.
This thing doesn't burn like a vehicle, you need fuel to run it, right? Same with this, it needs wood to run. Without this wood, it's going to get cold in there.
Mayor Gandam says the site behind the Walmart will provide washrooms, garbage disposal, and a fire pit. The location has been used in the past. He says the city is working towards a permanent solution.
Not everything has gone smoothly. We haven't gotten it right every time, but we learn from our mistakes and we're going to continue to do that and continue to make that effort.
Are you confident that there'll be a solution and a place for these people to stay before the winter?
I am confident, yeah.
Tom is grateful for the help of the Rock Soup, but their resources are limited.
Yeah, people are just trying to live here and survive. Look, we're starving. Soup Rock can only support so much, right? And they're bending their backs just to keep these guys fed every day and draining their accounts just to makes people happy, you know. Nobody else out there is pulling for us, just them. But, you know, if you have a heart, come here and support us.
Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Wetaskiwin, Alberta.
Still in Alberta, an Edmonton police officer has been found guilty of assaulting an Indigenous man during an arrest in 2019. This video shows Elliot McLeod screaming in pain as Constable Michael Partington dropped his knee on his back. Partington was assisting another officer who stopped McLeod for riding his bike on a sidewalk without a bell. Backup was called when McLeod rode off after giving a fake name. Partington has been suspended without pay since charges were laid last summer. Okay. Stop. There's 163,000 square kilometers of fresh water in the Northwest Territories. That's more H2O than Brazil, Australia, Mexico, Norway, and Mongolia combined. This month, APTN News was invited to see water through one Dene community's eyes. Here's a preview of what's coming.
I'm Charlotte Morit Jacobs in Kakitu First Nation, Northwest Territories, for a water stewardship gathering.
Separates the metals from the water. Then when we fill in the water, I'll give...
Folks from near and far are sharing stories on
that water travels quite the distance.
How they are connected to water.
Hunter that uses the water to go hunting, or
how they use water, and how they plan to protect water for future generations. That's coming up soon on APTN National News.
Welcome back. Time now to take a look at our photo of the day. And Catherine Lafferty sent us this photo of the Utsingi Point Cliffs, located along the east arm of the Great Slave Lake. Catherine tells us these extend 300 feet above water and descend more than 800 feet below the surface. That'd be quite a jump into the water. Keep those photos coming by sending them to share at aptn.ca for the chance to be featured as our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at Friday's weather forecast. Starting on the east coast, 18 with showers for St. John's, 29 and rain in Halifax. 20 in Kuujjuaq, showers and 12 in Nain. 25 in Montreal, sunny and 20 for Chibougamau. 17 with showers in Sault Ste. Marie, cloudy and 20 for North Bay. 24 with rain in Thunder Bay, 19 in Sioux Lookout. 20 and sunny for Churchill and Norway House, 21 in the Paw. 19 with rain for Winnipeg and Gimli, showers and 18 in Dauphin. Similar temperature in Saskatoon with rain, 17 in Regina with showers. 16 and rain in La Ronge, 23 in rain for Uranium City. Over in northern Alberta, showers and 23 for High Level, Peace River and Fort McMurray. 22 in Medicine Hat and Edmonton with rain, 19 and rain in Lethbridge. Showers and 20 for Vancouver, sunny and 20 in Victoria. 17 for Dease Lake, showers and 20 for Prince George. 14 and rain in Old Crow, 17 for Whitehorse. Sunny and 23 in Yellowknife and Fort Simpson. 8 in Sax Harbor with rain and 15 for Pawlatuck. 20 in Whale Cove and Chesterfield, 21 in Arviette. +1 in Resolute, 3 in Arctic Bay. Some sad news to pass along now as Nunavut and Nunavik have lost a journalistic tour de force. Jim Bell, the longtime editor of Nunatsiaq News, passed away from cancer at the age of 69. Bell spent 34 years with Nunatsiaq News, the paper that covers Nunavut and Nunavik. Premier Joe Savikata put it this way, saying his pieces were researched, passionate, and always authentically him. Bell was a frequent guest here on APTN National News since the beginning. Here he is way back in 2000 talking about convicted criminals being elected to the Nunavut Legislative Assembly.
Why are we not hearing political leaders here saying violence is wrong? It's wrong to rape women.
And our condolences to Jim's family and all those who knew him. Well, that's going to do it for us here tonight. All the time we have for your APTN National News on this Thursday. For news anytime, though, you can visit our website, aptnnews.ca, and never miss a headline. You can do that by downloading the APTN News app. I'm Dennis Ward. Thanks for being with us. Have a great night.